Yes, to set the context, so I've worked on the M25Jct10 scheme since its early planning days, but I'm here to talk about Cockcrow, and I don't have time to really touch on the wider scheme and the benefits that are being delivered by the wider scheme, but I'm here all day, so please do come and talk to me. So to set the scene for Cockcrow, this is the Junction 10 scheme. Essentially, it's A3 widening and a new gyratory at the Junction 10 of the M25 and the A3. But also, what's been delivered by the scheme, as well as some local authority works, is to close out a number of accesses, unsafe accesses along the A3. The A3, this junction has one of the worst safety ratings of the M25, and also problems with congestion. So removing the accesses along the A3 was one of the key drivers. And you'll see one of those accesses is actually the access into Wisley Common, and that's Surrey Wildlife, one of Surrey Wildlife Trust's bases. So because we needed to remove unsafe accesses, we obviously need to provide alternative accesses. And another part of the scheme is to deliver a new pedestrian, cycle and equestrian route, and that's the pink that you can see. So Cockcrow is just there nestled between Ockham Common and Wisley Common. So Cockcrow, a new structure at Cockcrow was always a requirement of the scheme to provide that alternative access and that continued NMU route around the junctions. So this is where the opportunity arose. So this is the original Cockcrow here. So you can see it's quite an unappealing connection, but it was used by walkers and cyclists and actually equestrians. So this is Cockcrow being demolished early last year. This is the new Cockcrow. This is a drone footage just a couple of weeks ago. Can you see it? So you can see it's obviously a big difference. So the new Cockcrow is actually 30 metres wide, and that will replace that vehicle access for Surrey Wildlife Trust and other residents into Wisley Common, but it will also provide that NMU route that's really important for the scheme. So why there? Why did we decide to deliver a green bridge at Cockcrow? Well, it was very much to do with the local environment. So Cockcrow sits between Wisley and Ockham Commons. Both of the commons are parts of the Thames Basin Heath Special Protection Area, and they both support SPA bird species, so nightjar, Dartford warbler and woodlark. We also have in Ockham Common, we have a good population of sand lizards, which is really exciting. And it also is very strategic for the scheme. So the scheme went through, obviously, a series of assessments, one of them being a habitat regulations assessment. As part of that assessment, it was found that the scheme would have an adverse effect on the integrity of the SPA. And as a result, we had to apply for a derogation licence, or National Highways had to apply for a derogation licence. And that was under the imperative reasons of overriding public interest, what we call IROPI. Now, IROPI triggers the requirement for a compensation package, and part of that compensation package is an extensive heathland restoration, which is underway in Ockham and Wisley Common. So, as well as the heathland restoration, we have new SPA areas, we have woodland enhancements and other mitigation. But actually, interestingly, Cockcrow, although it's positioned within that compensation package, wasn't actually necessary mitigation for the scheme. So at the early stages of the project, Surrey Wildlife Trust approached the project with an idea of potentially delivering a green bridge at Cockcrow. At this stage, we applied for National Highways designated funds scheme, which is basically a pot of money that National Highways have to fund business, things that are above business as usual. So as I said, the Cockcrow wasn't necessary mitigation for the scheme, but the opportunity was there to deliver something using designated funds. So this started a process of really around 5 years of funding applications. We started with the feasibility stage, and that was very much led by the target species. We had lots of discussions at this stage about how wide the bridge needed to be, and also how we were going to design the bridge and how we were going to create this heathland connection. We were fortunate that we were successful in our funding application for detailed design funding, and the DCO for the main scheme was approved, which allowed us to be able to deliver Cockcrow. So we did get funding. Obviously, we are building Cockcrow at the moment. So this is a kind of representation of what Cockcrow will look like. As I mentioned at the beginning, Cockcrow would not be in place if it wasn't for that NMU route that was a requirement of the scheme, and also that occasional vehicle access for Surrey Wildlife Trust and the local residents in Wisley Common. So it is a mixed-use bridge. It does have shared access. A careful design has allowed for the majority of the bridge, the majority of the northern section of the bridge, to actually be restricted, so there'll be no public access through that section. But public have very much led public use of the bridge have very much led through the design. So what are the benefits for wildlife? Well, obviously the benefits for wildlife are really this safe and connected dispersal route between the commons. But as you can see from hopefully you can see from the plan, the position of Cockcrow actually is maximising the potential of the habitat restoration being delivered by the scheme, and also the existing heathland habitat that Surrey Wildlife Trust already manage on behalf of Surrey County Council. So delivering Cockcrow has really resulted in a 3-kilometre corridor of connected heathland habitat. So that's very significant for Surrey. So we've got populations of reptiles and amphibians and invertebrates mixed in for perhaps the same time for the first time since the A3 was widened in the 70s. We've got increased dispersal, breeding opportunities, genetic mixing of isolated populations, and probably personally one of one of the most significant benefits of Cockcrow is that it's had a lot of media coverage. So it's really telling the story of defragmentation and the need for defragmentation in the UK. And there has been an awful lot of interest across the UK in Cockcrow. So what's also different about Cockcrow is it's obviously a heathland green bridge. Most of the green bridges in the UK are planted with trees and hedgerows. And the sustainable design approach to Cockcrow has been to actually source the landscaping from the adjacent commons. So this is one of our turf areas that has been prepared. So there'll be a turf translocation that will lift the heathland turfs from the commons and place them onto the bridge deck. And obviously that provides us with the heather and the plant species, but it also provides us with the seed bank from the heathland and the mycorrhizal associations, and obviously the soil being incredibly key for Cockcrow. All the subsoil that will sit underneath the turfs has also been sourced from the SPA, from the areas where the construction work has taken place. And we'll also have a boulders and a deadwood corridor that will go across Cockcrow, and that's really taken inspiration from Europe, which this is generally something they do in Europe because it provides that corridor of refuge, especially while the heathland habitat's establishing. So this is just a close-up, so you can just see the purple is essentially the heathland turfs, and you've got the deadwood corridor across there, and you've also got the connection to those heathland restoration areas being delivered by the scheme. So just to finish, really, why do I think we were successful in receiving the funding from designated funds? So the project received £3.7 million from designated funds in order to turn that kind of standard vehicle access NMU structure into what you see here. And I really think it was actually the multiple benefits. So that NMU route and the public use and the connection at a landscape scale was really important to that successful funding application. And really just to leave you with just some thoughts on legacy. So we obviously are really excited. Cockcrow has long-term funding for 15 years of habitat management and monitoring, and we also have a partnership with Surrey Wildlife Trust to monitor the species that are used in cockcrow. Generally speaking, green bridges in the UK are not monitored, and so cockcrow is a really good opportunity for us to learn and get that really essential evidence base to promote more green bridges across the UK. Yeah, thanks very much.